Welcome, and thanks for joining us today for our 42nd episode of the Restaurant Dealmaker Show, where we discuss pertinent topics regarding the food and beverage industry with industry professionals. I am excited to have Emily Winston, the founder and CEO of Boichik Bagels, as my co-host today. To start off with, I wanted to share some of the things Emily and I have in common. First, we both graduated from Cornell University, and unfortunately, I graduated many years before her. Second, we've both been food service chain owners and operators and have shared similar operational and development challenges. And third, we both had the opportunity of dealing with Noah Alper, the founder of Noah's Bagels, as I sold Noah's kosher vegetarian restaurant, Restaurante Raphael on Center Street in Berkeley, many years ago. And my family has worked with Noah on other projects in the past. And Emily's first retail store, Boichik Bagels, was on College Avenue in Berkeley, which was Noah's first bagel store. And I'm sure Emily will share with us how Noah made contact with her regarding this opportunity. For those listeners that are not familiar with Emily Winston, let me give a brief background of her rise to stardom in the bagel business world. Emily's educational background includes a BS degree in mechanical engineering from Cornell University and a master's degree in transportation technology and policy from UC Davis. In the early years of her career, Emily was an engineering intern at Hewlett-Packard and Agilent Technologies, an associate engineer at General Motors, and was the fuel cell vehicle program manager at UC Davis, responsible for two $5 million prototype vehicles. Emily then became an illuminist at St. George Spirits in Alameda, learning and teaching about spirits before becoming a principal at Emily Winston Design, making distinctive lighting fixtures from uncycled bottles. Overlapping her years with Emily Winston Design, she created Emily Winston Consulting for 9 years, doing energy billing. And then in 2017, she began the development of Boichik Bagels, and the rest is history, which I'm sure she'll share with us today. Emily, thank you very much for joining us today, and I know our audience is going to enjoy hearing about your accomplished background. So my first question to you is, although I've read your story as to how you got interested in the bagel business, could you please share that story with our audience and how you came up with the name Boichik Bagels? Thank you.
So I'm a suburban New Jersey, born and raised. Jewish suburbia. Part of my childhood routine was every Sunday morning, my dad would go out and fetch a bag of bagels and bring those home. And that was our family brunch for my entire childhood. So I just took good bagels for granted. But if he was working in the city, if he was up on the Upper West Side of Manhattan for work, or sometimes he would bring me, if he was bringing me around New York City at Zabar's, and across the street was H&H Bagels, and we would buy all of that at Zabar's. We'd get the lox, the sable, and whitefish, and chive cream cheese, and a big bag of bagels from H&H, and we'd bring that home. And it was such an exciting, that was like the ultimate bagel experience. We had our normal, excellent bagels, and this was like the pinnacle of bageldom. And we'd have that for dinner. It was always like a special event. We'd have it for dinner. So I grew up, moved out, then moved to the Bay Area in 2010 and went to some bagel shops and said, ugh, these are not very good at all. I'm just not going to eat bagels out here. I'll wait till I go home and visit my family, who's all still back in New Jersey. And then in 2011, I got the terrible, terrible news that my beloved H&H Bagels had been shut down for tax fraud. I'm like, I'm never going to have my most beloved bagel ever again, and I'm not okay with that. And conveniently, right at that same time, there was an early pop-up bagel outfit called Schmendrick's in San Francisco, and I tried their bagel. I'm like, well, this is a solid bagel. And to my mind, I'm like, that means that the whole business about the water, you have to have New York water, is a myth, because they're making a very respectable bagel using our local water. This is not exactly the H&H bagel that I really miss and want to recreate, but it's great. So I'm like, this means it can be done. So I just started jumping in. It became my obsessive new hobby. And I'm like, it was like my Moby Dick. I want to find my bagel. So it wasn't like, there was no business plan attached. It was just this personal obsessive hobby. And so every few weeks or so, and it would come in waves, and I'd try out some bagel recipes, and I'd bring them. I had two particular friend groups. I had a neighborhood potluck group and I had my martial arts school. And within both of those groups, there were a number of like East Coasters and or Jews. So they became like my real core taste testers. So I'd bring in my newest version and I'd be like, okay, what do you think about this? How's it compared to last time? And I developed a whole vocabulary. We're gonna smell the bagel. We're gonna lick the outside of the bagel. We're gonna, rip it open and look at the crumb and all of these things. I really came up with a whole wine tasting type of vocabulary around it. And that just evolved for years. And 5 years later, I had an excellent bagel. And then my friends were saying I should sell them because they were great. And I just kind of was like, you know what, let me just give this a try. Because every few years I'd think about getting an MBA and then I'd talk myself out of it. But I've always had an interest in business. So I'm like, you know what, let me take this. We have a great pop-up food scene here in the Bay Area. We're very food obsessed. Let me look into this and then I'll take some classes and I'll network and it'll be like I'll make my own little MBA out of it. Like, what if I made a business out of these bagels? So I started doing that. I got invited to be in the Eat Real Festival. So I got a cottage food license that let me legally sell the bagels I was making in my home kitchen. Launched it at that. It was a hit. East Bay Express wrote me up the next week, said this is the best bagel in the state of California. And then people got really excited and all got on my Instagram and my mailing list. And I did some pop-ups out of my house and we sold out super fast and a line down the block. And very quickly, I'm like, you know what? I think this has legs. This could be a real business. And I did some more soul searching on that. And then I decided, I'm like, all right, I'm going to do it. The numbers look really good. I started looking for a spot. And then I met Noah Alper. I was introduced to Noah Alper. He very graciously agreed to meet with me and chat. We sat around for it had to be well over 2 hours at a cafe. It was great. And he called me a few months later and said, corporate just closed my original store in Berkeley. It's an amazing location. You should totally go look at that. And I went and it felt beshert. Like I had to take it because it was like, this was the original Noah's. And I'm like, this is, bagel, his historic bagel location. So I took it. It took me a year and a half to build it. I felt like I was the laughing stock of the neighborhood. People were like, how long does it take to turn a bagel shop into a bagel shop? But the Noah's was always a steamed bagel. And I was very, very religious about this is, I'd done my research watching videos of New York. When I'd go home, I'd go to New York and go snoop around and peep in windows and ask questions. I'm like, this has to be boiled. Once I want it to be baked. Bagel boards, the stone deck, the revolving oven, the whole 9 yards. I'm like, I'm doing it right or I'm not doing it at all. So I had to take out his original rack oven that was still there, get that out of there, put the new oven in, put the 40-gallon kettle in, all the venting and the hoods. Then the city decided that the venting was no good. It was up to code 30 years ago. It wasn't up to code now. They made me redo it twice. It was a nightmare. But finally we got it open and we were a huge hit from day one, which was great. But the name came from actually several years earlier. When I had chopped my hair really short and went home and I was going to see my grandmother was going to see this haircut for the first time. And I was really nervous because she's a traditional Jewish grandmother who does not mince words. And she took one look at me. She said, "Oh, you're such a boychik. Are you having your bar mitzvah soon?" And it was really sweet. And I kind of filed that away because it's not a word I really heard a lot of growing up because I have two sisters. So when I thought about, I'm like, all right, I'm going to do this. I need a real name. And I'm like, I want it to be Jewish themed somehow. And the alliteration of a B word is great. There's a lot of B bagel shops around for that reason. And that just kind of came to me. And I'm like, it's kind of perfect. And then normally it's spelled with a Y. Of course, I changed it to the I to be like an extra double entendre. And it's that's how I got the name. But the only trouble is I get a lot of people read it quickly and flip it. So they say like Boichik. And I'm like, no, that's not definitely not doing some kind of like biotech bagel.
Right.
But yeah, it's worked out. Actually, I had someone in the really early days was like, that's a terrible name. It's never gonna, never going to fly with people who don't know Yiddish, but it works out okay. And the people who do know Yiddish.
Yeah. Really... Well, it's a name you certainly don't forget. Yeah. That's, it's a cute name. I really like it. So with such rapid growth starting in 2019 and now having an 18,000 square foot bagel factory plus 11 retail stores, 9 in the Bay Area and 2 in Los Angeles, a nationwide shipping business, and a catering and events business centered around your products. How do you manage all this activity?
The team.
I know you must be super.
No, it's all a teamwork. Oh Lord, yeah. No, I can't do any of it by myself. Nor would I want to. No, that's actually it's the coolest thing about having grown it. It's also been it's been really scary, and sometimes it feels really weird, but no, I have a phenomenal COO, Rob Soviero. We have a catering manager, we have a wholesale sales manager, there's a unit manager in every store, we have whole production, we have a factory manager, we have a whole, it's kind of, I can't believe it. But it all we have a ton of people, they're amazing, and they make it happen every day. Yeah, so it's like, yeah, there's the Dunkin' Donuts joke, it's time to make the bagels. And it was a lot of long, long days in the early days, certainly. But now, now it feels like it's magic to me. Like I basically get called when there's a problem that people can't figure out. But it's kind of wild.
How many employees do you actually have working with you?
We have over 220 now.
Wow. And
But
with the labor market being so tight and the housing market being so expensive, how do you find good people?
well, we treat them well and we pay them pretty well.
Hmm.
So I think that goes a long way, and we have
Sure.
relatively low turnover for a food business. So we pay well, get good tips. So everyone in all of the retail stores, all the tips are pooled through all the hourly employees. We have a health insurance plan available. We have a 401k with matching. That is probably not something you normally find in a bagel shop. So I like to say, it's like we're making a premium product. We're charging
Right.
a premium price, but it's like we can have nice things. We can treat our people well. We can pay for the maintenance of our things. We can buy new equipment when it makes sense to do so. We can do all of these things, and we can be
Yes.
generous with our product.
And I'm sure they're incentivized by the fact that you're doing all this dramatic growth, which really provides a lot of motivation for them to, be involved in this great company that you're building.
Well, the cool thing is, we have people come in as a basic, frontline worker and get promoted to supervisor and then unit manager. We have people who started, at kind of at the base level and now are running stores.
Nice.
So because we're growing, there's opportunity for growth. It's not like, okay, you know, I'm gonna put bagels in a bag and this is gonna be my career. We really are offering. So not everyone. A lot of people want to, it's a summer job, it's a temporary job, whatever it is going to be. They're moving on to other things, which is great. But people can make a career with us if they want, because we
Nice.
now have that opportunity, and we're growing. When we expanded to LA, we had two people who wanted to move to LA. So that worked out perfectly, and they're really happy. They wanted to go. So it's just neat. It's neat that way, and so people can grow with us as a
That's
company.
wonderful. That's great. So could you tell us how your engineering background has served you well in the bagel business and in the automation of the production parts of your business?
Yeah, well, engineering is really just about figuring stuff out and thinking about process. And as a mechanical engineer, I'm always like, how does this work? How do we make the thing? I'm always like, I love to think out how to make stuff. And that's what the whole business was. First I spent years, obsessively trying to make the bagel I wanted to eat. And then I had that. And then it's like, well, here's this, do I want to build a business around it, build a store? And then I did, and it was a huge challenge, but it's like, okay, we're going to build a store, and we're going to lay it out like this, and here's all the equipment I want. I'm researching equipment, and there's voltages that you have to be on top of, and there's all kinds of technical requirements, and then we're laying things out in space. I drove my architect completely bananas because I wanted to be involved in the layout and the design, but it's all like, that's all design, and then we get it up and running, and then things are breaking, and so I get to then I get to fix the things. So there's plenty to do, and it actually, I was really concerned going into this. I'm like, I came in with zero food service experience. And so I felt like I was at a real disadvantage. So I hired people with real food service experience. But then it kind of turns out later on, it's like, well, but what I bring to the party actually is really valuable. And most food businesses don't have that, don't have an engineer on staff who I'm like, the slicer's broken. Let me take it apart and fix it. And something's wrong with the toaster. And basic plumbing and electrical. So I'm able to do a lot of things and not have to call someone and wait, 2 days for them to show up. There's a lot that I'm able to address myself and save money. And then looking at, as I'm like, okay, I think so what happened was that, after a year and a quarter of being open, the New York Times story came out saying, sorry, New York, the best bagels are in California. And that's really what blew the roof off of our place. And we had these 2-hour lines wrapped around the block. And when that settled down, I'm like, okay, well, clearly we could grow. Like there's some real demand here. Do I want to grow? I really thought about that. Went back to Excel, did more modeling. What would that look like? How should that work? And said, the most technical piece of the bagel making is really making the dough. Because if the dough isn't right, your bagels are not going to be good. And there's the ingredients and there's weighing it out, but there's stuff involved in the mixing and like, how is it mixed? And then how is it fermented and at what temperature and how long? And I'm like, and the machine we had, this retail rolling machine, was a real contraption. It was a lot of work to maintain it and keep it clean and running every day. So I'm like, I don't want to build just more stores that are just like this, because this is really difficult. And I got really lucky with a phenomenal professional baker who walked in and became my right-hand man for a long time. Let me build a centralized facility. We'll make commissary all the dough, and then I want to invest in more automation, because I'm an engineer and I feel like engineers have a special kind of lazy where like we'll do a lot of work to make something a little easier kind of forever more down the line. But I'm like, I want a bigger machine. Like we could have just moved our current machine into a larger space, but I'm like, I want this much bigger machine. I was talking to the manufacturer. We could do this. We could really build this to plan for serious growth down the line. And I think that given the reception to my bagels, that it's there. We were doing our stores and wholesale. So we're doing already sliced and frozen 6-packs in freezers all over California now. And I call it picking up where lenders left off, where they had the pre-sliced frozen bagels, but we're doing it with an excellent bagel, and you throw it in a warm oven or a toaster and you've got a phenomenal bagel months after it's baked. Once you get it in the freezer, it's nice. It just kind of locks that in for months. So all of that, I feel like all of that is being an engineer. That's all. Yes. It's all just kind of thinking, problem solving and process design. And that's really what the engineering mindset is all about. And sure. investing resources for a later payoff.
And you're using robotics, right? To some extent.
There is some, yeah. So right now what we have is, there's really two very discrete sides to the bagel making process. First, you make your dough, and then it needs to, for a good bagel, you have to make your dough, and then it needs to proof overnight in the fridge. So you get a long, slow, cold proof. So it's much like sourdough bread, where it's slow and cold and the flavor is developing. So the yeast is fermenting slowly and you're getting better flavor development and more flavor development, and we're developing the crust. So then the next day you take your bagels out and you boil them, and then you bake them, ideally on a stone deck oven to get the crust right. And then you're done. So you have these two very separate pieces that lend themselves to really being split up in a big way. So I'm like, we can automate. So my plan with this facility was let's put more automation in the dough side, because I know machine rolled dough works great because we were doing that from day one. Let me get a bigger machine, a bigger, more advanced machine. So this machine has way more automation on it. So the dough gets dumped in a hopper from the top, and it's getting rolled out much faster, and it's actually the bagels are getting dropped onto the boards, 24 on a board, the board's popping out. And then we have a really cool robot arm that picks the board up off the line and puts it in the rack. And that's the really sexy piece of the line, which is actually a separate thing. But it's and all that does is save, it'd be a person's full-time job. And I've been in a factory where they even had this going even faster, and they had 3 people that all day long, they're just picking up the board and sticking it on the rack because the boards were coming out this fast. And I'm like, no one wants that job. So this is another thing. It's where we provide a good work environment. I don't want this job. I don't want to be paying someone and they're going to be miserable. Every 7 seconds, you're going to pick up this board that's not super heavy, but it's heavy enough to be annoying. And pick it up, put it in there's reaching high, there's reaching low and bending. No one wants that. Let's get a robot that'll do that. And then you're not going to hate your job so much and have horrible back problems. So right now we still have 3 people working dough production every dough shift. But a lot of what they're doing is kind of monitoring the automation and fixing, sometimes a bagel gets, drops in the wrong spot. They're picking it up, they're moving it. They're supervising the automation and the robotics, which is way more pleasant and fun than doing super repetitive labor, because it turns into Lucy in the Chocolate Factory. But our original machine that was smaller, you had to pick up, it would shape one piece of dough. You have to pick it up and put it on the board. Pick it up. So you do this 24 times, and you take the board, put it on the rack. Other ones are coming. You're it's all of this constantly. I'm like, to do that even faster and faster and for more and more hours of the day, and just no one wants that.
Yeah.
That's not fun. It's not satisfying. You're just going to want to quit and then have more turnover. So
Yeah.
we don't need that. And I'm very happy with that. But we haven't, on the baking side, we actually haven't done any automation to date. We're still doing, so all of this, the dough is put on the rack by a robot. That rack goes into the fridge, but then the next day we wheel that rack out, and they're doing exactly the same as they've been doing in New York for the last 100 years. You take the board out, dump them all into the pot of boiling water, stir them around, put them on board, seed them, board them, put them in the revolving deck oven. So all of that is like super old school. So we have the first half is super automated, the second half is super old school. But I'm like,
Yeah.
anything I can do where we make life easier for ourselves, for our employees, for everything, save time, save effort, but not compromise the quality of the product. Because
Right.
the most important thing we do is the bagel has to be awesome.
Right. Yeah.
Otherwise, there's no point to this business.
Yeah. Very interesting process. Yeah. I can see how it definitely helps the efficiency of your operation by what you're doing. So in addition to the cash flow that you generate from your current operations, what funding programs are you using to expand and develop your company? Are you using private investors, private equity groups, or any other vehicles to fund your new development? Because you're growing so quickly.
So from the beginning, I've done there was a lot of loans, what I called community promissory notes. So people I've like, lend me money, I'll pay you back with interest within 5 years. And I did. In the first round, because I needed money to build the original store. I paid them back actually 2 years later. When I decided to build the factory, I did that again with a lot of the same people, came back with a much larger check. I also did, it's called the SMBX, it's Small Business Loan Fund. So that they let you do a proper crowdfunding because the SEC has very strict rules about public crowdfunding. So I could privately, to the people who I already know, say, hey, would you like to lend me money? Would you like to do this, that, the other? But I wasn't, you're not legally allowed to just blast on social media, hey, who wants to, please lend me money. That's not allowed by the SEC. By doing an official legal crowdfunding, I was able to do that. So we set this up. You put a program online. It works just like GoFundMe or Kickstarter, very similar. And people can go in, they make an account, and they can give you anything in $10. So there's people who want to just lend me $10. They're like, here's $10. But the thing is, instead of getting a t-shirt or nothing, you're getting paid back. It's a real loan that you're, and it's interesting because a lot of people are just like, I don't get it. I'm like, you're like on the other side, you're being the bank, and I'm going to borrow from you and I'm going to pay you back monthly, every month for 7 years. You're going to get the deposit from me, and you get a happy little email that says, ding, you just got paid by Boichik Bagels, and you can have all the warm and fuzzies, and then you'll think like, oh gosh, we should go get bagels this weekend. And people do, and it's like you're part of the story. I just love it because it's finance and it's marketing and it's community engagement. It's all of these things wrapped into one. And all the time I get people saying like, hi, I'm one of your investors, and it's really cool because they're part of the story, and they're also going to evangelize for me forever because they're waiting to get their money back, and so they want to see me do well, so they get paid back. And so loans range from $10 to $50,000 through that program, and we raised over $1 million, and that helped build the factory. We've also done equipment financing on a lot of the big fancy stuff we did. We did over $1 million of equipment financing to build the factory. Since then, there's been a bank line of credit we've been using, and we're actually in the middle of our very first equity round, a friends and family round. So we're doing that. It's the first time. So I have not sold any equity until just now. Managed to retain all of it. And I'm not doing VC yet. We're doing it's friends and family. So it's small private people who basically I know personally or I'm getting connected to, who want to come in, and it's like, they see the potential and they want in. I had my parents, maybe a year ago, they're like, well, what part of the company do we own? I'm like, you bupkis. They had tried to, when I first told them I was going to do it, they tried to talk me out of it because they're like, oh no, you don't want to do this. This is a bad idea. Bakery's a lot of work. This is not what we think you should be doing, which is funny because they've always been they were very supportive when this was an obsessive hobby. And then I said, I'm going to really do it. And they tried their hardest to talk me out of it. But fortunately, I was 40 and I decided I didn't need to listen to them.
Yeah. Well, very interesting formula.
But now I'm like, they're like, well, they're like, how much stock do we own? I'm like, nothing. But I'm like, all right, we'll do a friends and family round and you can buy in. And so all of my immediate family has been buying in stock. And it feels nice because I have some big plans for this and I don't have a definite, there's not like and then we're going to do in 5 years, we're going to sell out to, whoever. That's not the plan. I'm building this to grow it and make it awesome. But things can happen and I think we're going to increase in value and at, some point there could be a very nice return down the line.
Sounds exciting. Good. So in studying new market expansion opportunities, what are your demographic criteria for setting up a new retail operation?
So we definitely look for, the core. It's funny. One of the classes I took, they're like, who's your core target audience? And they're like, you're not allowed to say everyone. And you're not even allowed to say like lots of people. They're like, you have to bring it down to like, one imaginary person sort of thing. So I'm like, well, my core, the deepest core of my demographic is really me, more or less. But it's the ex-New York area Jew who now lives in California and is very sad that they can't find the great bagel that they grew up with. Before I got into all of this and I was, living out here and I'd meet someone from New York. It's like, oh, you're from the East Coast. Oh, there's no good bagels out here. That would be like the first thing you'd say to bond. And then it would be followed by, and there's no good pizza out here. So it was this complaint, this very, this standing complaint that everyone had and you'd bond over. So that's the core. So I'm looking for a decent sized Jewish population. I'm also looking for foodies. Lots of people, basically almost everyone except the gluten-free people are likely to be bagel eaters, and even gluten-free people, but like not exactly free. I get it. I have a ton of people who tell me that my bagel is their cheat off their gluten-free diet. But, foodies, educated, we do great in college town. Certainly we started in Berkeley. We're on College Ave, so we're 1 mile south of campus. The second store we built is in Palo Alto, actually right across the street from Stanford. So I think because we're getting a very cosmopolitan crowd, people who've been all over the world probably have experienced bagels, at least maybe spent some time in New York, if not grew up there. But that certainly works as a good crowd for us. So that's that's like the top thing. But then it varies. Like, for instance, we built a downtown San Francisco store in the financial district. So that's very, very different. We weren't sure what we would get, but it's doing awesome. And so that is really aiming at businesses. People are there for breakfast or lunch, they're on their way to work or on their lunch break, and providing offices with bagels for whatever spread they need to do, their breakfast or lunch catering needs. So totally different demographic, but it works great. It's nice and it's very dense down there. Our 2 stores we built in LA are very different. We built one downtown in the Bradbury building in downtown LA. Also like just super different demographic, but it seemed like a really cool spot. And that one we're in the historic Bradbury building. So there's tourists coming through. We're across the street from the Grand Central Market. So there's, tourists, there's locals, there's people working downtown. There's this whole different thing. So it really varies. And a lot of what it is just kind of going with my gut and like, do I like the spot? Where do I think? And it's definitely not perfect. We definitely have some stores that are not doing nearly as well as others. Another thing I look at is there a nice coffee shop nearby? Like if people are buying high-end coffee, then they're like, it notes that these are foodies who will pay, $5, $6, $7 for a cup of coffee. There are people who are going to want to pay for a great bagel. So I like to joke that I just can steal on the coattails of other people's market research. Like we have Phil's Coffee in the Bay Area. We have one a block away from our original store. So I'm like, I know we'll do well, but we have good coffee everywhere. But I'm like, it definitely it's like, okay, this is a good sign. These are our people if they're buying high-end coffee. And it's like from the beginning, we're always getting people, because we offer coffee, but we offer kind of a basic coffee. I'm like, we're not a coffee shop.
So you want to have a synergistic group of high quality products that complement your product as sort of your focus.
Every day people are going, they'll go to Pete's, they'll go to Phil's, blue bottle. So they get their coffee because they want their Phil's coffee, and then they come and get their bagel, and they'll photograph it together and put it on Instagram. They're like,
Sure.
good morning to me. This is how I like to start my day.
Yeah. So getting to your specific operation, how does explain how your business model is different from your competitors, and what are the key characteristics that make your product and company stand out from your competitors?
I don't think there's as a bagel shop, we're all, the business model is not really drastically different than other bagel shops. Basically, people come in and buy bagels and bagel sandwiches. I would say that in California, the standard, like when I grew up, it was the basis of a bagel shop was, you go and you buy a bag of bagels and take that home. And that's what I grew up with. And I never bought a sandwich in a prepared sandwich in a bagel shop until I went to college. And I didn't have dad bringing a bag of bagels home anymore. And I wasn't going to buy them for myself. But I lived in this dorm that was right across the street from this great bagel shop, College Town Bagels. And I spent a lot of time with them. But I, go and get my bagel and coffee there. But in California, it seems like it's very much more about as a sandwich, and a lot of it has been more like the trend in bagel shops has become more of a deli than the old school. Like my mom would tell me that when she was, a child in Queens and she'd go to the bagel shop, they just baked bagels and that was it. They didn't even sell. There was nothing. It was like they wouldn't slice it. They wouldn't do anything. It's just, here's the bagels and there's the door. We don't sell orange juice. We don't sell containers of cream cheese. You're going elsewhere for that. It was just a bagel bakery. So when I decided to do this, I really wanted to keep it more of that, the Zabars, Russ and Daughters, the dairy appetizing end of Jewish cuisine. And I'm like, it'll be bagel, partly also because I have no food service experience. I'm like, the last thing I need is a full-blown restaurant. Really, I just barely know how to make a bagel and that's it. So I'm like, it's being bagels, cream cheese, fish, tuna, egg salad, basic coffee. We have, orange juice and various things, but keeping it very tight and kind of coming up with this middle ground that wasn't really done. And I do get pushback all the time that we don't do bacon, egg, and cheese. We don't have a flat top. We don't have a cooking surface. The only cooking we do on the line.
Keep it that way too.
What's that?
You want to keep it that way.
I want to keep it that, well, it makes the operations a lot easier, and it also keeps it authentic to a certain way. I'm like, I want it to be this like old school experience and not a deli. It's tough because a lot of people get like actually very angry with me, which is interesting. I'm like, we never like, I never teased you with the bacon, egg, and cheese, but it's expected now. Like, how can you be a bagel shop and not offer bacon, egg, and cheese? And to me, I'm like, that should be on a Kaiser roll personally. But aside from that, the original store that I took from Noah, there really wasn't any room to put in a cooking surface anyway. So even if I'd wanted to, it would have been difficult. But so we're kind of going there, and there are challenges because people want certain things, and they want, Noah's, a lot of modern bagel shops have taught people that they can get all these things in a bagel shop. They can get turkey and lettuce on a bagel, and like, to me that's an abomination. I just don't want to do that, but people are expecting it to be like a full service sandwich shop. So we've kept the menu really tight. And the other thing is, I want people to buy bags of bagels. Where a lot of bagel shops are just set up to just really be sandwich shops. It's like, no, I want you to buy a dozen bagels and 2 cream cheeses and a half a pound of lox. I want you to have that experience, which not all bagel shops actually want you to do. Some places, I've been to some that if you walk in and say, I want 4 dozen bagels, they'll say, no, you have to order that in advance. We won't sell you 4 dozen bagels on the spot. But I'm like, please, knock yourself out. By all means, come and do that. And if you want it, as long as we have that in stock, we will sell that to you. But if you want big orders, whatever, all we ask is that, make sure you get exactly the flavors you want and the quantities you want. You can order that by 10 a.m. on our website, and we will make as many bagels as you want.
Okay. So that's good explanation.
That's part of it. But and then the other piece is the wholesale end, which is very different than the norm.
What is your range of distribution in the wholesale end? What's your geographic range of distribution?
Now we're pretty much through a lot of California, although it's mostly like we have some reach up to Humboldt County and past Sacramento. We're not in like the far reaches of the state, but quite a span in Northern California and some reach in Southern California.
I see.
Not so much yet, but we're getting there, but we have 3 distributors now. But the normal, the standard thing that bagel shops have been doing, small upstart bagel shops are doing with, if they choose to wholesale, is put the fresh bagels in a plastic bag, put a twist tie on it and put it on the shelf and say sell by, 4 days from now. And I was asked to do that. And I said, absolutely not. To me, a fresh bagel belongs in either a paper bag or, but it doesn't belong to me. It belongs in a sealed plastic bag because it just ruins the crust. It gets kind of soggy. It's gross. So I'm like, the bagel should either be fresh from the bagel shop, or if it's going to be in the store, I'm like, I'm going to freeze it. I want to slice it and freeze it. So that was the thing my mom did growing up. Any leftover bagels Sunday morning, she would slice and put in Ziploc bags in the freezer. And then during the week, if you want a bagel, you just take it out and toast it and you're good to go. And it's delicious. So I want to sell them frozen. And, I decided, I'm going to die on that hill. We are not selling these bagels fresh in a plastic bag sitting on a shelf because they're not good that way. So I want to be a premium. I want to keep the integrity of the product. I want people to buy them and they're still good. Yeah. I made that happen, and I had to fight a lot of battles with supermarkets to get them to do that properly because they really didn't want to. They're like, people want fresh bagels because you're supposed to get a fresh bagel that's better. But I'm like, it's not actually fresh by the time it shows up on your supermarket shelf. So that was a very different approach I took to the wholesale, and it's been working out great. So it was a lot of battles that way, but at the end, I'm very happy with how that's working.
Great. Good. So switching a little bit, what event or events have been most challenging in your career, and how have you dealt with these challenges?
So many challenges. Construction is always a challenge, even when it doesn't. Yeah, it's never fun. There's always unpleasant surprises. Even when it goes pretty smoothly, there's things that happen, and it's really trying because it so much feels very outside your control. And plumber goes and does something, and it's like, oh, surprise, there's actually something very wrong with the plumbing in this space, or all sorts of things go wrong. So construction, I call construction like the 8th circle of hell, and yet we keep doing it because I'm a masochist. So construction, but really the first shop was so hard, and part of it, like, I had no idea what I was doing. I felt very, very alone.
Berkeley is very tough. Berkeley is very tough. They aren't picking on you, let me tell you. We've done lots of deals in Berkeley, and there's always seemed to be an amplified number of issues there than elsewhere.
Well, the thing is, though, I've been expanding elsewhere, and then I'd heard that, and I'm like, okay, well, that's good. It'll be so much easier going forward. And then it hasn't been. It's all it's always hard. Granted, I've just been in California this whole time, so maybe if we go to, Idaho, it'll be a lot easier, but it's just never been easy, really, or almost never. There's always something. And it's just a lot of cursing and crying and hemorrhaging of cash. It is not for the faint of heart.
Yeah. Got it. So all your many accomplishments you've achieved throughout your career, what single accomplishment sort of stands out and is most meaningful to you?
To me, getting the first shop built and up and running, like that was the hardest, just emotionally and in every way challenging and most difficult thing I've ever done. And it really stretched me a lot. And it felt so good to finally have that open and to have people love it. Yeah. And it was just, it was like the first baby. It was, and things are still, everything is still challenging now, but it's never, nothing is as traumatic and like involved as the first one to me. And rewarding to get it open, because it's like, oh my God, we got it open, and it's like, thank God, because now it's like, okay, yeah, we need to get this over. It's delayed, okay, but right now, because we have all these stores, so money is coming in every day. We're selling bagels and money is coming in. That first one, I had loans, I had my piggy bank, I had borrowed money from people. We got this thing. It took forever. I was paying rent that I wasn't expecting to pay. We were like really running out of cash and it gets like faster and faster as you get closer to opening, as you know. And I'm like, oh my God, like if we don't get this open soon, like, then we might have that, like, and there's places that will crash and burn before opening because problems come up. And I'm like, to have that, like, finally have the plane take off and fly, just was such an amazing feeling to have it actually work.
So if you had to do anything different in your business career, what would that difference look like?
It's really tough to want to go and change things because I'm so happy with where we're at right now. So,
Nice.
it's kind of dangerous. I would want to go whisper in my ear in those early days, be like, it's gonna work out. It's gonna be okay. I'm gonna take on more debt and more risk. It's scary.
Sure. So, of the various mentors you've had in your career, is there one mentor that really stands out and that's been most meaningful to you? And if so, why?
Yeah, so my mentor, Cheryl Liu, has been so phenomenal. I met her by accident. It was like the best accidental meeting I've ever had. She is a super talented baker. She owned her own bakery in Montclair for many years. She teaches baking at Laney College, community college here, and she just loves to mentor everyone in the baking industry. And she's like a help. I don't think she sleeps. She does all kinds of stuff for everyone. And we met, and she's like, "Oh, I'd heard about you." And this was while the original shop was in construction. And we hit it off and, started spending more time together. And then she just kind of came in and became, just so helpful, just incredibly helpful. Helped me hire the first manager for the shop, came in, helped deal with, we had, all kinds of HR problems. And I had no idea. Actually, HR was the piece that like terrified me more than just about anything else because I have no HR experience, and she, held my hand through all of that. There was a lot of stressful stuff in the early days, and part of which is because I had no idea, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm winging it as I go, and so to have her with her many years of experience was super invaluable. Plus, she's an amazing baker, so she can fill in, she can jump in, she can help train bakers, and with all of our like other baked things like the challah, the black and white cookies, she really develops that. And so it's really fun because she's an amazing baker. So I'd be like, all right, we'll start with this recipe. And she'd make the thing. And I'm like, all right, I want it more this way. I want it more tender, a little sweeter here, a little something. Then I want like all these things. I could just be like, I want it a little bit this way, a little bit that way. And like 2 iterations later, I'm like, this is the challah of my dreams. Because so what took me 5 years to develop a bagel, for her, it takes like, 2 weeks to develop something because she's just that amazing. So that's been really cool and just a phenomenal resource to have.
I want to just thank you for sharing your fascinating and accomplished background, which I believe will serve as a role model and inspiration for many ambitious upcoming entrepreneurs. If anyone wants to get in touch with you, Emily, what's the best way to do so?
My email is emily@boichikbagels.com.
All right. That's straightforward. Thank you. So I want to wish you best wishes for a long life filled with good health and continued success in all your future endeavors. Thank you very much for participating today. Our future Restaurant Dealmaker co-hosts for 2025 include as follows. September, Kevin Weinberg, who's the chef owner of the Walnut Creek Yacht Club, one of the top seafood restaurants in the Bay Area for almost the past 30 years. And we're actually in the process of selling his business as he's retired. October, Dan Baker is one of our restaurant realty agents who was formerly a chef owner for 21 years of Marché aux Fleurs, which is one of the top restaurants in the San Francisco Bay Area. And Dan has extensive experience in restaurant consulting. In November, Bennett Maxwell, he's the founder of Dirty Dough, one of the fastest growing QSR restaurant concepts in the country, with over 80 open locations nationally and 450 currently under development nationwide. And they were just acquired by Craveworthy Brands. And in December, RSC staff will be wishing everyone a happy holiday season and discussing some of the highlights of 2025. I want to thank you all for joining us today. And Emily, thank you very much for your excellent presentation. And if you want to get in touch with me, the best way to get me is steve@restaurantrealty.com, or I can be reached toll-free at 888-995-9701. Take care of yourself, take care of others. And again, thanks for joining us today. And Emily, thank you very much. Have a great day.